need it all. Do you want it though? Where do I begin? I see the hate, they don't wanna see me win. Bank deposits, I got more coming in. Top down, throw the money in the wind. I don't want it all. Heard he scammer, had to switch up the accounts. Moving paper, gotta call in my account. It's all in, I can have it coming out. Been through the struggle, I can see another drought. Yeah, it's not a purse, it's a merge. 6 figures was a goal, now it's 9 or a hearse. Put it work. Used to pull up, not swerve. No time for the snakes, time to put them in the dirt. That's word. I gotta get it, it's in my DNA. You only see the highlights, don't know what it takes. Last year stressing, got no sleep. Now I'm right between the courts, I don't know bleed. I see the hate, they don't wanna see me win. Bank deposits, I got more coming in. Top down, throw the money in the wind. I don't want it all. Heard he scammer, had to switch up the accounts. Moving paper, gotta call in my account. It's all in, I can have it coming out. And through the struggle, I can see another drought. Yeah, same circles to the same gang. We just get to it, we don't gangbang. Lost some friends to the same thing. Keep a low pro when we maintain. Find us in the lost somewhere, kicking back. Find you.
Well, welcome everyone to Getting on the Right Side of Your Money. My name is Mordecai. I am part of the Finance Squad. And today, we have an amazing conversation with the Finance Squad entitled Budget Busters. We've been having this conversation around the importance of the budget and how the budget frees you up. And so tonight, we're going to go deeper into this conversation around Budget Busters. Again, this podcast is about really inspiration, education, motivation, and impartation. And I want to say, what's up to the fellas? It's Saturday night.
What's up?
or sitting back, y'all chill. Well, how the wife and the family, man? You know, everybody asks about the wife and the family, man. How's the family?
Hey, man, the wife and family is good. We couldn't think of a better way to spend the Saturday evening.
Oh, my God. I can't believe we're up on here at 8 p.m. on a Saturday. Santana, how's my sister doing, man? I just tell her I said hello, and I can't wait to see you all soon. Everything good, man. Listen, we're talking about this Budget Busters, and we've been talking about the financial house. House. I just want to say how grateful I am for the two of you all. And down through the years, you all have just really been a serious inspiration and blessing to me personally in getting my life straight. And I remember the first time, I met you, Forrest. You remember, man, we were trying to just bring people onto this journey. And it was like, two lone soldiers just crying in the wilderness. And, Santana and I, we've been together since first grade. You know what I'm saying? First grade. And so there's a lot of history here on this podcast, man. And so I'm really glad about it. And so when we talk about building that financial house, we're talking about the budget, right? That establishes that base and income protection. And we're going to have all those conversations and savings for retirement and your emergency funds. And the big one we're going to get into in a couple sessions is debt resolution, right? And then saving for your big goals. So, when we're talking about getting on the right side of your money, here it is. I mean, that's like kind of a map, and we want to follow this map. And so, Forrest, like, help us understand, like, when you look at this whole thing here, protecting your income, your budget, debt resolution, saving for retirement, education saving, and then obviously we got big goals that we have that we got to save for. How important is it when we talk about this budget, man, this budget buster? So, like, what are some things that bust the budget?
Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. So we spent several weeks on the topic of budgeting, kind of identifying what goes into a budget, how you list those things out, how you track those things from a numerical system or a numerical standpoint. What percentage of what should my housing be? Should my food be? Should my transportation be? All of these things are going to go a long way in providing you with the necessary steps to move forward. There are a few things, and generally speaking, you'll find one or two of these items that we're about to talk about in the Budget Buster section in every household. And these are things that can absolutely throw a monkey wrench in your game plan. Hence, Budget Busters. A few of them, living outside your means. We're going to come back and talk about what that means. That inherently we take that statement in a derogatory way. But a lot of that could be the community that you live in. The cost of living where you live can really dictate or fall into living outside of my means. Paying too much for a car, paying too much for clothing, paying too much for leisure items. What's too much, and how do we determine that? Credit card debt. Am I paying for all of these things on credit cards? Should I be paying for all these things on credit cards? If I have to use my credit card, is it time for me to have these things? Or am I buying necessities? Am I buying basic essentials on credit cards? We're going to touch on all these things because these things will absolutely destroy your budget. Hence, Budget Busters. Leisure spending. I touched on this a little bit last week. We touched on it a little bit last week. You know, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard an individual say, I'm going on vacation because I deserve it. Not I'm going on vacation because I saved for it and I've earned it. And those are two distinctly different things. Do you deserve it, or have you actually saved and earned it? These are all things that can absolutely wreak havoc on and destroy a budget. Living outside your means. Let's touch on this, fellas. Let's dive right in.
Yes.
I was talking to a gentleman who lives in an area here close to me here in Michigan. I wouldn't necessarily call it a high rent district, but it's comfortable housing located in this area. This is a married family of two, $130,000 a year income. Now that's a far different, quite different than $50,000 a year, but $130,000 a year in income. Two small children, 4 and 2, and the dog.
Okay.
They live paycheck to paycheck on $139,000 a year income. He told me after expenses, after taxes, after deductions, his net income, his net bring home is about $8,400 a month. And they literally are living from paycheck to paycheck. I'm not going to say it. Go for it.
It's interesting you say that, right? Because I mean, you know, it's like we think when you look at the value of a dollar and how far a dollar stretches, it's getting smaller and smaller what we can actually do with. So this conversation is important, right? And I was reading last week in it, you know, I just want to throw this out. It said that 40% of Americans have enough saved to cover $1,000 emergency. That's only 40%. And so that to me is another crisis, another opportunity as we talk about budget busters. And so, you know, like, how do we get to a place where I'm making 130,000, but I'm right on the bubble, man? Like that breaks my heart to even hear that, you know, those kind of resources are coming in, but I'm not able to leverage it. You know what I'm saying? And so, I mean, you talked about living outside your means, Santana. I mean, you've been a real stickler on this, man, since I've been knowing you. Like, I've watched you save and save, man. I've watched, man, our friends hop on sofas and stay temporarily on like, you know what I'm saying, man?
Well,
like, what
I mean, there are some. We talked about some percentages last week, so I just you know, I looked at 28% of that 139. Gives you about 38,920. So if you divide that by 12 months, talking about $3,200 a month for housing or mortgage. I would think in Michigan that should put you in a fairly reasonable space. So I think in an instance like that, we got to look at it. We probably got to start then looking at those car payments.
Correct.
Does that family have 2 car payments?
That family has 3 vehicles, 2
There
payments.
we go.
Yeah.
So we're talking about budget busters.
And
now.
ironically, the second thing on the list, Santana, is paying too much for a car.
Yes. So you can, it kind of cascades down. Okay. If you stay in the right parameters in terms of your rent or mortgage probably the next big thing that's going to pop out is how much are you spending on car notes. So you're talking a family with 3 car notes. Let's say just hey, they were $750 each car. If you do 750 times 3 times 12 months, $27,000 they're spending on cars. So you're done. You have, and then you did say after, so their take home pay is about 80. We're already at $73,000. If they have daycare expenses, food, they're maxed out. I mean, they used to say that men and women not lie, but numbers don't. And so when you just do the budgeting, is just adding and subtraction. It's not real complicated math. We're talking about elementary math. I mean, it's plus and minuses, and when the minuses are greater than the pluses, you got a problem.
We got a problem.
So when you look at this particular situation, it's easy. We've already got to the bottom of the problem. One, you need to only have 2 cars.
So let me ask this question. Let me be clear about what you're saying, Santana and Forrest. What I hear you saying is this. Okay, so I'm making X amount, and between my mortgage or rent and my car payment, what's that percentage?
Right.
So if my mortgage is over, let's just say that my mortgage payment or my rent payment is, let's just say 34% of what I make, my gross. Is that a budget? Is that a budget buster with 3 car payments in this scenario?
Unless you're making far more than the example that we're talking about, it's no way. There's no way to accomplish that.
On 130,000 in annual income, then that would be a budget buster. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And here's something else you got to take into account. 130,000 puts him in rare air, right? The average income across America, the average income is about $48,000 to $52,000 a year. So, married couple, dual income, that's about 105, 110. So they're actually doing better than the average dual income. And he's telling me that they're paycheck to paycheck.
But Forrest, if you go back to last week, we talked about that those are probably two people, who say 65 to 70 coming together, that didn't take advantage of getting their finances right before becoming one. So you have 2 individuals that are maxed out, and so they come one maxed out. So if you're not taking advantage of whatever circumstance to lower your debt prior to coming together, then it just snowballs.
I got to tell you, man, it's going to come down to, and we keep coming to this, right? I can't live without. I have to have. My wife and I were down to one vehicle. We dropped one another off. We carpooled everywhere we went. And we did that by choice. That was a choice. Well, a few things happened. We saved some money, and my wife and I got closer to one another. You find out a lot about somebody when you're riding with them 5 to 10 hours a day, every day.
Well, I got some folks saying, I ain't trying to get close to my wife like that. You know what I'm saying?
Well, one of the challenges from an accounting perspective is, like a car is a depreciating asset.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you buy a car, you finance it for 5 years, then it's worth nothing. Then you start the cycle all over again. Yeah. So, at some point you have to get a car that you like, pay it off, and then be able to take that money that you were using to pay the vehicle off and put it towards your retirement or savings or other debt that you have. And so cars are just like a money pit. You just keep dumping it in, and that I need comes in because marketing is done well. They market the car, they make it look nice, and then we go back and buy another car. Even if you kept a car for 7 years.
Santana, if you are inclined to not want to have the car note, right? What we're talking about is the car note. I'm paying every month for a depreciating asset. Hey, you guys, we're going to take a commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to get back on this conversation.
Here we go.
My name is Christine Burkett, the inventor of the 5 F's to Love. This is a compatibility app. It's an app that gives you an opportunity to rate words that start with the letter F in chronological order of importance to you, to help you find your one true love, your soulmate, and the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. So after you've taken the time to rate your F's in chronological order, you send a link to the person, I don't know, you just met, or the person you've been dating for quite some time. Or maybe it's the person you've been married to for 30 to 40 to 50 years. And then you compare your top 5 F's to find out what things you have in common and things that you may perhaps need to work on. This is taking a simplistic perspective on how to find your one true love, your soulmate, the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And thank you for downloading the 5 F's app.
Well, we back here, and listen, we've been talking about budget busters. I'm Mordecai. I'm joined with the fellas Forrest and Santana, part of the finance. We are the finance squad, and we're talking about budget busters. And you know, as I'm just sitting being a part of this conversation, I'm always like, you know, always soaking in as well as you're talking about, you know, budget busters. One of the things that I want to like encourage our listeners is that, you know, you're never out of the game. And so when your budget is out of alignment and you got some things that's busting the budget. So I'll give you an example. So we just talked about you may be out of alignment paying too much for cars. Well, what if you financed that car for 4 years and you're in the third year? You don't want to necessarily refinance, right? You might just have to wait it out, but find some other areas in the budget like leisure and some of those other areas that you can cut back on and get some cash back. You know, and so that I think I wanted to just really open up by saying that's the reason why we say everywhere you don't have advisement or you don't have coaching, it's going to be very difficult for you to succeed at the highest level, because you know you can't like succeed beyond your own knowledge. Like you got to go beyond that. And so it's important that we do put ourselves in the midst of these conversations. And so Santana, walk us back through the 10-20-70, and then we're going to get back into this budget buster.
So on last week we introduced just a guide. You know, there may be other percentages that you won't put for our podcast. We introduced the 70-20-10, and that means, and we're talking about gross income. We want you to get to a place where you're able to do 10% to charitable giving, whether it's a church or any or nonprofit organization, and then we wanted you to be able to put 20% to retirement. And then the other 70% is your leisure, your vacation, your consumer debt, your rent, mortgage, and taxes. We want, so we're looking, when you sit down, if you're just graduating, you're like, well, how should my numbers look? You're making 50,000. We're saying, hey, you know, your goal should be having 10,000 going towards retirement, and then you should have another 5,000 going towards charitable giving, and then the remainder is going to covering your rent, covering your car payment, covering any credit cards you may have, and the taxes. So we're trying to give you a working framework. Now, we established last week that getting coming out of school and just making $50,000, it's a challenge to have money to put towards retirement and savings. And we provided hope in the fact that if you have a home or area that you can go back to, that you can start off and not have that initial rent and car note, or maybe if they're like one of your kids on the phone on a podcast, maybe the parents has covered the car note, and so they're able to not just, and you're able to just put some money aside. But when we went through the various illustrations, we noticed that even once you get to 100,000, and we just talked about in the previous segment, that it's still, if you go out and get a car note, get 2 car notes, and then you're talking about health insurance for 2 people, it's still difficult. So what can you do? One of the things that we all make a mistake at is everybody wants a new car.
That's right.
That's one thing we haven't talked about. Well, go. Maybe
Yeah.
you have to start off with a used car. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Well, you know, Santana, I don't mean to interrupt you, my man. It goes back to I need or I gotta have. You need transportation, I grant you that. But transportation can be provided publicly.
Yeah, but let me
Yes.
let me tell you, like, let's be real about it. I'm just going to like my story real quick. Got out of college, Santana know where we were. In my head, I deserve this
There we
car.
go. There we
There
go.
we
I'm
go.
just gonna be honest. I'm just gonna keep it real.
There we
I
go.
deserve. I was not trying to come up out of just living without nothing, bumming rides, catching that city bus, doing whatever. And then I got my offer letter from the corporation, and I'm not gonna buy a car. What y'all talking about? You
Right.
get what I'm saying? Like, so I think that's infectious. Is when we tell ourselves that we need something that we don't really need. I needed transportation, but I did
Bingo.
not need a
Bingo.
$30,000 vehicle. I could have, looking back, I could have gotten a $12,000 vehicle that was
Correct.
super reliable, way in my
Correct.
budget. It would have
Correct.
lowered my stress, allow me to do some other things. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And so, you know, one of the things that I have said for me and different folks that we talk to is that people ask me, what's your definition of being broke? I say, well, one of my personal definitions is I know I'm broke when I can no longer give and I can't save.
Okay.
If I put myself in a position where I cannot give and I cannot save, then that to me says a whole lot that my budget is totally busted and I got to bring it back into alignment.
Forrest and Mordecai, I want to talk about something that we very seldom talk about, and that is how cunning marketing strategies are created to bust your budget. See, we don't even and this was done in a sermon that my pastor. The new scent is created. It really comes from the admission of the new leather and all, and we become intoxicated by that new scent when it's really just the scent coming up from the leather and stuff in the carpet. And so they even created a new scent fragrance that they put in older cars because everybody's intoxicated by the new scent.
When
And
you go to
so-
the car wash, you can get an air freshener called New Car.
Yes.
You can get an air freshener called New Car.
So we marketing is an agent. Let me use that. Marketing is an agent to be a budget buster.
Yeah.
Even
Marketing is an agent to be. We have a phone. We know we don't need this new one to come out. But when they market it, they send us stuff in the mail. We bite it. We bite them.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
do
I
it.
gotta
We
have
do it for cars. Yeah. Like they just came out. There may be just one or two features changed.
Santana,
And
you bring up an interesting point, my man. And Mordecai, you touched on it with the example of when you graduated, you had to have this $30,000 a year car. You guys know you can't talk about finances and how it impacts a person's life without really addressing the person.
Yeah.
Views them. I gotta have a $30,000 car. No, you need transportation. That can be accomplished without a $30,000 new vehicle. There are other things, other motivating factors, other things that come into play that cause us. Go for it.
No, so I wanted to say, just because I'm approved doesn't mean I need it either.
Correct.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Sometimes we get like, oh, I got approved, so that must mean somebody on the other end has done this math that we talking about, and they feel that I can afford it, and my budget is within alignment. When I filled out the application to get that car, at that moment, I did not have a lease agreement or a mortgage because I was moving. I had not bought my first groceries. I had not paid city tax. I literally, that was the only expense I had. So I got approved. Watch this. I move. I get the apartment. I started doing all the expenses. And guess what I found out? Man, we don't have enough.
That's right.
But I've entered into this agreement with Toyota that I'm going to pay them over the next 4 years.
That's right.
So, I think for me, when we talk about the budget buster, it really helps you to identify who you are and what those goals that we talked about are. You know, for as you
Well,
talked
in
about
your
those goals.
case, in your case, Mordecai, you inadvertently found yourself in a situation where the very things we're talking about that bust a budget, paying too much for a car. When you realized I owe Toyota this money, and now life is happening and reality is showing up, you're spending money and buying things on credit cards just for the essentials. Because I have rent or a mortgage, I got this car note that I'm locked into for 4 years. 4 years. And today, they'll lock you into a vehicle for 6 or 7 years, which is ridiculous. They'll lock you in for 6 or 7 years.
That's too much, man.
Yeah.
That's
they
too
will
much.
tell you, we'll lower your payment by $20 a month if you go from 4 years to 6 years.
And we
I
fall
want
for it.
to go back to one of your other line items on the budget busters, which is credit card debt.
Yeah.
And one thing that is a blessing or the curse, if you do have good credit and you're able to get an American Express, I have seen American Express cards wreck people's budget because you have 30 days sometime with no real limit. So you're feeling good because you're able to swipe it and do everything you want to do. And then when you get the time to pay the bill, well, you're like, well, I wanted to save money this month, but I got a $5,000 Amex bill. And Amex doesn't really let you pay over time. So
No.
you gotta pay that bill. It's not like a Capital One or any of these other credit cards. You're responsible for paying that debt on a monthly basis.
So you mean they don't have a minimum payment set up?
No.
I can't send them $35 and call it good?
No, hold on. American Express has now afforded its users a payment plan on certain purchases.
Really?
Watch this. You can now book a flight and break the flight out into multiple payments. But no one reads the interest and all the nuances in that deal. They're loaning you that money, but it's a loan. You understand? And so they now afford you that. Like I was on the Delta app and you can, whatever, and it'll allow you to break it up in multiple payments. Again, it's a relationship of bondage. It's a relationship.
That goes back to what Santana was talking about, marketing. That's another marketing ploy.
Yes,
absolutely. And think about it. Well, I can break this out into 8 payments. Boom, boom. I'm good. I'm on my way to Acapulco, right? And so
8 payments. That's 8 months. So I'm paying for this year's vacation almost into next year.
Yes,
into next year. And so
it's plenty of people paying for Christmas still right now. Yeah, I mean that's one of the number one thing. Christmas will be paid for until next Christmas, and then the cycle just keeps.
They asked the guy about Christmas. It was like, well, how are you going to do it with all the numbers of debt that we talked about, right? And many consumers said, look, last Christmas, we just going to max our credit cards out. So there's something inside of us that's this need. And when you go into a jewelry store, the first thing they say is, you deserve this. Why? Yeah. Right? So how do we get into alignment? One of the things we talk about is working backwards, right? Number one, doing the math. What is the number that you need for the lifestyle that you want to live? So you want to live high, you want to live whatever you want. Like, we're not saying you can't, right? But listen, we're going to talk about this, how you work backwards and get back into alignment as we come back from our break. We're going to head into a commercial break. We'll be right back, family. Hey, we back. Hey, my name is Mordecai. I'm with the Finance Squad, and you're joined with Forrest and Santana. We are here talking about budget busters. You want to let everybody know the Finance Squad is on. We're talking about budget busters. On the last segment, we were talking about how do you get back into alignment? Where's the hope, right? And so one of the things we always talk about is, some suggestions is you're working backwards, right? Back into the number you need that identifies the lifestyle that you desire, right? And so if you want to live a certain kind of way, if you take this example of the 10-20-70, how much do you need to live the way you want to live and be in alignment? And so Forrest and Santana, people often say, well, I don't want to make that personal sacrifice. I want to drive that Benz. I want to drive whatever. I want those 2 cars. That's what I want. I work every day. That's what I want. So, okay. Well, the way you're living, you need to go from 130 to whatever to get into alignment if you're not willing to make that adjustment. And so one of the things is there another way to start another revenue stream, right? And so for people that's making 50,000,
I want to jump in.
Jump right in because I want you to.
This is important. I was talking to a friend earlier today, and he was saying that, hey man, and this is for that age group that's like us on the podcast. For those that really want to retire and looking at their savings and looking at the budget, at some point, as I said, I think in session 3, that a budget should frustrate you or free you. And so if you're looking at your 10, 20, 70 right now today, and the numbers are not going to yield the retirement that you want and the lifestyle you want, it is now you got to make a decision whether you're going to unlock your creative ability.
Come on,
unless you're going to stir up all the gifts in you, or you may be working after retirement. So it's some people got to make a decision that it may be true that your 70-20-10 doesn't work for you. But what are you going to do about it? What God give the talents that you have that can now yield more income to give you the lifestyle you want and the retirement you need. So it's 2 different things. It's the lifestyle you want, but it's the retirement you need.
Santana, I got a question for you. You're a CPA, correct, my man?
Correct.
Okay. What percentage of people, roughly, generally speaking, are employers versus employees?
I mean, that's probably gross. In our communities,
That's a low number.
I would say about 90%. I would say about 90.
So 90% of us are actually going to work for someone else for a paycheck.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That mentality, I don't think is the mentality that's going to use the creative side of things to go generate another revenue stream.
But here's the reality. If you don't, then the clock is ticking.
Or yes, generate another revenue stream. One of the reasons I got into the business I got into was my creativity. I wanted to captain my own ship, right? Make my own decisions.
Yep.
But implemented in that also is one word, and it's key in all of this, whether you generate your own income or you go to work for your income. Of course, you're going to work for it either way, but you understand what I'm saying. It's discipline.
Yes.
Period.
People, absolutely.
I want, I need. Yeah, if you cannot afford it, you can't afford it. Period. We sound like kids as adults. It's like, I'm going to take my ball and go home. You can't play in my sandbox anymore. That's what we sound like. And we placate to that constantly. Marketing, media. You talked about it earlier with marketing. All of this stuff is designed to touch on those individual desires that we have that takes us outside of our personal discipline.
Well, let's deal with the reality. 20 years ago, you would work for a company that had a pension.
Correct.
So you could be a great employee and a poor person preparing for retirement. because the company took the responsibility of making sure your financial security was there at the point you walk out the door.
Correct.
That is no longer. We're going to be the first generation that we're going to be able to only eat what we kill.
So watch
Yes.
this. Companies, so watch this, man. Companies got out of pensions because it was more cost effective for them to help you fund a 401k. You're going to do your own retirement, and we'll give you
That's right.
some money toward that, but we're getting out of the pension business because people are living for 30 years. My grandfather worked for, he lived in retirement the entire time that I was alive. I never knew him as working for his company. He was in retirement drawing a pension. He wasn't the only one doing that. So they got out of pensions. So we need to look at what the companies are doing. They got out of pensions because it was contrary to their bottom line. We need to approach our bottom line the same way. Some of the things that I want, some of the things that I'm purchasing are contrary to my bottom line.
You know, a lot of people, they hear this conversation and it's like, well, I totally get what you're saying. And I want, just because, don't judge me because of where I am. You know what I'm saying? Just because I'm an employee, right? Don't judge me. Like I want to do better. And one of the things that we say to people is that, okay, if you do, as Santana said, you got to make a decision. How can you, create a new revenue stream? So one of the things we help people with is you got your acquired skills. And sometimes that revenue stream can be spawned by like listing out your acquired skills. You have unique education. How can you maximize your education? And that doesn't necessarily mean education that you got at a for your institute. It could be something your mother taught you.
Yeah.
And then the third one is
it could also be having a garage sale.
That's what I'm saying. Man, y'all hard, man. Y'all hardcore, man.
But the reality is, I mean, I don't want to make.
Hold on, before you get it. The point is that we are all a tremendous deep resource. Yeah, that we all have. We have something that's not being utilized, and the system that we get caught in is not designed to make us creators. So we got to break out of that. Correct. And that's what we can do. This whole budget conversation, it is inspiring this, that you can break out, and within you can make more money than you ever made. But you gotta get hungry for that future that Santana was talking about. The clock is ticking. What you gonna do? So Santana, I want to hit you because I cut you off.
So I it is really concerning. I want to reiterate that we are the first generation without a pension. So what are you going to do to position yourself, one, to have adequate retirement and get rid of this debt? We can laugh, we can talk, we can joke, but at some point, unless you're going to just try to work until God sends you home, you're going to have to live off of what you've killed. And it has to start now. It can't start if you're in that 45 to 60 range. You got to start now. Like this, as much as you want to make this a very practical illustration of budgeting, this is real life.
Right.
This is you're going to get a scorecard called your 401k at retirement. It's really a scorecard on how poorly or how well you've done putting away resources to be ready for something you say you want.
And I'm glad you said that, Santana, because you're right. It's not too late. If you're in that 45 to 55, 56-year-old window, we're joking. We are having a good time here. It's not too late for you, but Santana is absolutely on point. You have to start like yesterday, right now, getting serious about what life looks like when I'm no longer punching a time clock. In retirement, I may find something, you may have to find something that you enjoy doing, something that you would really do for free to generate a little bit of revenue. I know quite a few folks who have retired from their 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 and have gone on to do something else. It generates a little bit of revenue. It's probably not anything they would have done on a regular basis during their working career. They love doing it, they would do it for free anyway, and it does supplement this retirement income, be it whatever I've saved in my 401k, whatever I get in Social Security. Social Security is still a real thing right now. People are still getting it. The older folks in our generation are going to see some type of Social Security. And if I can generate another $10,000 to $15,000 a year greeting or gardening, something that I really and truly enjoy doing, that's what retirement looks like. Very few people retire today and literally live on a beach. That doesn't really happen anymore. Retirement looks different today than it did when my grandfather and my great-grandfather, my grandmother and my great-grandmother retired. It looks different.
This knowledge and this conversation doesn't happen in an open platform for a lot of people in our community. You understand what I'm saying? And a lot of this stuff we're talking about, these products, these accounts, how you set them up. This is not you just walk into a bank and be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna start doing this. There's a strategy, there's a plan, there are products, right? You got to get things in order. So this budget is important. It sets you up to be able to make these other choices, right? And so one of the things for this whole, for those that are in their 20s and 30s and even in their early 40s is a lot of times they don't budget like for children, right? Because that, if you have a child at 40, you figure 18, how are you going, you know what I'm saying? You 58. And they're not going to leave at 18. They're still going to be on you. So we have to really think about, and we in our community it's taboo to talk about child planning. We just have kids, you know what I'm saying? A lot of times we just have our children, and because we love them. But on average, children add about $1,000 a month to family expenses.
I read something a few years before COVID, and I want you to finish what you were going to say, Mordecai. $280,000 from birth to 18. That's what it costs to raise a kid.
Before we go on break, that is staggering.
$250,000.
That's staggering. You understand? A quarter of a what?
$250,000 from birth
I just
to
need
18.
you to say that.
So you're talking about $15,555 a year. A year you spend on your child.
Yeah.
And so one of the things about the budget gives you ability to tell your money where you want it to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to take a budget and put all your money towards your cars and your lifestyle, then you're telling on paper that your lifestyle is more important than your retirement. And
Correct.
So you have to then be responsible for what you don't have at the end of the day. So I know this is our last week on budget, and this is why I want to push so hard on this, that either you're going to take control or at the end of the day, life is going to take control of you.
And
so I'm asking the listeners to really kind of do some self-reflection.
That's right.
Think about your time horizon on when you want to retire or when you want to be a business owner. If you're a young person, get serious about your finances now in this budget. Start filling the buckets. Get your emergency fund of 6 to 12 months of bills.
Yeah.
We'll start talking about debt resolution on next week. What do you have that's eating up the additional money you have? Saving for retirement. I know sometimes that, especially when I was young and working, I thought, retirement was so far off. I don't need to focus on that. Well, now, on the verge of hitting a certain plateau in age, I'm like, wow, I got there quick. I can't even remember what happened in between that, but it comes so fast. And even if you hit these little, when we were starting with 401k, they were new. It's like, well, you should put 5 to 8% of your gross revenue. Man, if you do 5 to 8%, and you can do that for 30 years, I don't think you're going to have enough for retirement. Retirement has to be something that really becomes something aggressive that you attack, or you're going to end up with not the outcome you want, and it's going to be nobody to blame but yourself.
So we got to take a break.
These are really good points you're making, Santana. Very good points.
We got to take a break, fellas. We got to take a break. We're going to come back. Forrest, hold your thought, because we
Yeah.
really need to talk also about even how we take care of ourselves. It's not just about how we spend our money. It's about how we take care of ourselves so we can enjoy that later life and we're not on all these medications and stuff, right? And that's a budget item. So we're going to take a break and we'll be right back with Budget Busters here with the Finance Squad.
Broken future, all the plans you made in your heart grew just to die.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. I'm a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah.
Have you ever felt?
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah.
Loving how you wind up for me. Tonight is all on me. Mash up the place for me. Yeah, yeah. She just wanna highlight. Ooh, wee, that body talk to me. I need a taste, baby. Loving the way you move around me. No more delay. No, you can wait to shut it down. Won't you show me how you work it? I can't find no flaws, you perfect. Cause every time that you come around my way, I keep falling again. I keep falling again. And every time that you come across my mind, I keep falling again. I keep falling again. In love. Yeah.
Well, we back. We're here with the Finance Squad and Forrest and Santana Mordecai. We've been talking about Budget Busters, and I want to tee this up in this segment here. One of the things that and for all of our listeners, again, we have all the documents. Listen, we have them available in the comment section. You can click on the link, and it'll take you right to the documents, the 10, 20, 70, and all the things that you're seeing on the screen, so that you can begin to fill out your budget, identify your budget busters, and get yourself back into alignment. Let's talk a little bit about, on this final segment here, what we see with couples oftentimes is that, for example, we got one couple, she's making 50, he's making 50, they got a total of $100,000, right? And what we find oftentimes is that when we ask them to bring their budget, a lot of times there's a lot of money missing. There's a total of $100,000, but in the budget there's only $80,000. So I'm like, well, where's the other $20,000? And what we find is that there's a lack of transparency and oftentimes trust that if I bring everything to the community pot, I'm somehow going to be left out. My needs are not going to be met. And so there's a human element here that I want to just kind of tee up. Why do you think that we're so apprehensive with bringing all to the community pot in our relationships? And I'm talking about our committed relationships, where we've said we're going to do this together.
Well, you hit on it right there in the explanation, Mordecai. It's trust. We talked, I want to say in the first to second show, we talked about some of the things that prevents us from starting the budget, and fear was thrown out. So in my own personal life, my own individual fears prevent me from trusting whomever I decided to make a life with. And I just feel like for whatever reason, I can't bring 100% of what I have to the table. But that just isn't my finances. Oftentimes you find in that situation that I'm not giving 100% of myself to my partner, let alone my finances. So now we're getting into other issues, other important issues, because those things have a direct impact and relationship on my finances.
But you know, culturally, we're taught, and I know everybody's heard this. You could just say, "Don't let your right hand know what
know what the left hand
left hand is doing." So I mean, we've been taught now. Don't be no fool.
Yep.
So these are kind of things that you're hearing in the back of your head, you know, in our culture. That
so you know what, Santana? I'm gonna say this. Yes, we hear that a lot.
Yeah.
But you typically hear that from somebody that's been in multiple relationships and none of them have worked out. I would suggest you find somebody that's been together for 35, 40, 50 years and ask them. I bet you get a different response.
Yeah. You know, I say that because in that scenario, there's $20,000 of resources that are not being maximized.
That's not there.
Right. So, you know, we go back to the beginning, you know, this scenario where a young man, family, two children, 2 cars, making 130,000. Our question, is it really 130? There's probably some money somewhere else that's not being accounted for, and we want to hold on to it. So one of the things we talk about in marriage is that one person may have the vision, but the other person may have the timing. So no one gets manipulated. So when we come together and we look at how the budget is being busted, we could say this is our vision, but we need to also talk about timing. When do we think we can accomplish this, right? You want to do this? This may be a 5-year. This may be 3 months. This may be 6 months. So I want to encourage folks that budgeting does not bust your vision. It actually helps you to establish your vision, right? And stop living the illusion that you're going to achieve something that's just, it's like, you know, they took me to the dog track and run around the track, and, you know, back in the day, and I've never seen one of them hound dogs catch that rabbit. They just keep running around, right? So I want to just throw this out because we have to be transparent. This ain't just about how we're spending our money. This is about who we are and the lies that we have heard and we bought into. And, you know, we got to really sit down and do some real self-evaluation and ask myself, am I really being transparent? Watch this, with the resources that God had blessed me to have to come through my hands.
Well, you know, Sean, one of the things that's talking about the mortgages, when you have a couple that wants to get that first house and they have to come together, and I've seen some weird moments where people are like, oh, you got that credit card? Like, and you're sitting in the middle like, whoa, like what do I do? Like, and you notice, okay, though you're together, there's some things that the other person doesn't know. I mean,
yes,
a lot of marriages, people have the credit cards that's kind of tucked away. Like, if I have an emergency, I have my own credit card. Now, a lot of yes, a lot of times, you know, especially women don't want to be in a vulnerable position where they're totally trusting in the man and they don't have things set aside. If the marriage does go bad, then you're stuck. I mean, we've seen all the movies of the woman stuck.
Yeah, but Santana, doesn't that actually undermine the relationship? I can't be 100% in if I'm only bringing 80% to the table.
But normally
how am I going to be 100% in when he's not 100% in? Like, you know, like we always talk about this, but this is you know, what's the number one reason? One of the leading causes of divorce.
Finance. Directly or indirectly.
Directly, indirectly. So again, it's really about, you know, having this real conversation about life and how we got to get in position where we're telling our money what to do. Now, the budget will actually fix that. The budget allows you to say, okay, you want this level of security. What's the cost for that? What are you giving up? You understand what I'm saying? So that conversation can still happen and couples build trust in the midst of it. So, you know, there's just a lot to talk about. Santana, this is what you reviewed last week. And let's hit this, and then we're going to hit our challenge for our listeners for this week.
So what I want to push the most is, though the numbers change, the percentages are the same.
Correct.
The goals are the same. Now, what happens is that as the number changes, the desires change. And so lifestyle begins to grow. We just create Frankensteins of finances. You know, it's like we create something and then we can't kill it, because a lifestyle is a form of Frankenstein, because you created it, you developed it, but sometimes it gets to the point you cannot control it.
That's right.
And you didn't start off that way. You got used to buying the purse, you got used to buying the car, you got used to going to certain places, certain clubs you're a part of, members of, and it just begins to compound. And when you're like, when I started off, I said I was not going to be that person.
Yeah.
How many people, when they graduated from college, like, I'm going to be sound in my finances, but as the promotions came, the desires changed, the lifestyle changed, and Frankenstein was created.
So what alignment?
Yes. So we're some of it starts with dealing with your internal, where you're at, you know, recentering your moral compass and learning, relearning the word contentment.
Turn off social media. Turn off TikTok. Turn off all that stuff. Stop trying to compare yourself to people who have these artificial fake lives.
Yeah, artificial fake lives. Like, it's not even real, right?
It's not even real.
And so our challenge for this week is, and we talked about this last week, it was identify your budget busters, where you are out of alignment. This week's challenge is, what's your strategy, right, to get your budget in alignment? How are you going to come back into alignment? What is that strategy? You've identified, you've set your budget, you see you got some budget busters, but now what is your strategy? And we would really like for you to send us some questions, like, because, you know, we can give you some things to think about, some materials to read, and there are various strategies to help you. But what is your strategy to get you back into alignment? Forrest, what's your one word that you're going to leave our listeners with on tonight?
So I got 2 words tonight, man. And again, it goes back to what we've been saying all along: discipline and accountability. You can't put together a strategy to deal with budget busters or a budget period without having discipline and some accountability. There must be some transparency about who you are, where your shortcomings are, and then you need some help with those things to really get this on track.
Santana?
I'm going to leave you with my mentor years ago when I first got my first job. I used to always come to him and tell him about how much money I was making. And he responded with this, and I'll leave the listeners with this: never tell me how much you make, tell me how much you save.
Well, that's a mic drop, and that's a reflective moment. My name is Mordecai, and you have been tuned in to the Finance Squad on getting on the right side of your money. Listen, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and send us your questions, and hit that link so you can access all the documents. We'll see you next time.